welcome back to my channel, or welcome if you are new. My name is Desiree and I'm the owner and maker behind The Handmade Mom, where I create mom and positivity focused items. Now in this week's video, we are going to be finishing out my series on craft shows and vendor markets, where I basically was talking to you guys about how to go from finding markets all the way to now we're going to talk about how to prepare for them and kind of a little bit of the day of what that looks like. So if you are interested in seeing this video and learning a little bit about the ending process of preparing for a market and kind of what to expect on the day of the market, then keep on watching. Okay, so now you have picked a market or markets that you're wanting to attend, and now you're trying to figure out, okay, what do I do now? How do I prepare? What can I expect? All of those things. So we're going to go over that in this video. But first, if you have not watched the previous videos in this series, I will be sure to link them for you guys. Make sure you go back and watch that, so that way you can be caught up to where we're at now. All right, so now you have selected a market or a couple of markets that you want to attend, and you've already applied, you've gotten in, or you've signed up, and you've paid your vendor fees. Keep in mind that it's okay if things are not perfect this first time around. Letting go of that idea of wanting it to be perfect is going to be so helpful. In the beginning, I can tell you my first vendor setup was not perfect by any means. And if you look at my setup from then versus now, which I will try to find the old picture and then a more current picture and post them here for you guys. But if you look at my booth from the very first market that I did to now, it is completely different. And that is totally okay. So anyways, keeping that in mind, what do we do first for prep? All right, so the first thing that I do is I like to create a master inventory list of all the different products that I would like to have at the market. I start off with a very broad general number for the different categories of things that I bring with me. So for me, it's going to be things like my bling cups, my glass cans, the Starbucks cups that I take, the shirts, the keychains, etc. And then from there, I break that down in each category for how many designs of that particular item I want to take. So that's how I break it down. I look at this list though as a goal list. This is not a hard and fast list that once I set it, then that means that's what I'm taking. No, I use this as a goal list for what I would like to ideally have at my market. If I can't get to having 10 of a particular keychain and I only get to making 5 of them, then okay, I have 5 of them. At least I have those 5. Those remaining 5 keychains that I did not have are not going to make or break my success at this market. So that helps me. So hopefully that will help you guys when you are planning for what items you want to take and how many. I set up this goal list, and once I have that list, what I do from then is kind of work backwards. Figure out, okay, what items are going to take me the least amount of time? What items are going to require more time? How many different designs am I working on? Do I need to order materials? Do I need to order different colors of things? All those things I take into consideration when I am planning out how to get to that goal. It depends on how long you have and how far you can stretch out that to-do list for getting to your goals. But if you know that you have a market coming up in maybe a couple of weeks, then maybe tone down on how many different products you're taking. And that's totally okay too. I would probably only take, maybe instead of 5 designs of a glass can, I might take 2 designs or 3 designs or whatever I felt that I could handle within that given time frame. On the flip side, if you know that you have a big market coming up, it's a 2-day market, and you have a few months to prepare, maybe I would be more willing to offer 5 designs. You don't want to overwhelm yourself and overload yourself, but you also want to make sure you have enough product for customers to shop through. So that is the first tip. I know it's kind of a long and lengthy one, and I kind of added a little bit to the end, but making a master inventory list or a goal list, and treating it as such, treating it as a goal, and getting as much as you can towards that goal. The next thing that you want to figure out is your booth setup, your booth layout. How do you want to display your items? And that's going to also vary depending on a few factors. One is going to vary depending on what your product is. Some products require larger displays to be able to hold them, such as woodworking pieces, door signs, wreaths, things like that. If you are more along the stationaries, stickers, keychains, glassware, things like that, those are going to require a little bit of a smaller display for those. So you have to plan accordingly for that. Now, you also have to take into account what your space size is. Typically, at least the ones that I've seen, the standard booth size is about 10 feet by 10 feet. So that is usually about the size of an pop-up tent. Now, there are varying sizes of booths depending on the market, depending on the location. There is 10 by 20s. There is, I think I've seen 8 by 6. Honestly, I've seen a wide variety. I've seen it where in like the high school markets where like usually some club or organization is hosting a market, usually those are just like one of the cafeteria size tables. So all those sizes are going to vary, and those are also going to impact on you and your display setup. If you have a 10 by 10 space, then what I would suggest, and I like to do, I'm a little bit old school in this way, but taking a grid piece of paper, I like physical piece of paper and a pencil actually is probably better because you're going to do a lot of erasing and a lot of readjusting. But taking a grid piece of paper or regular piece of paper, it doesn't have to be exactly to scale, but I like using grid paper because then I can kind of draw things out to scale-ish. So yeah, that and a pencil, and I would just draw out a 10 by 10 square and then kind of figure out, okay, how many tables can I fit? Where do I want them? And then from there, you can decide what you want product-wise set up where. So for me, because I offer multiple items, multiple different types of products, I have different areas within my booth that have all these different products. So I have to plan out, okay, where do I want my tables to go first? What do I want the flow of my booth to be? And then where do the actual products go? A great place to find ideas is Facebook groups. There is Facebook groups out there that are specifically for vendor display inspiration, booth inspiration. So I would highly suggest joining one of those. You're going to see so many different ideas out there that maybe you hadn't thought of for not only booth setup, but for also displaying different types of items. So that's a really great resource to use. Also know too that once you set this plan, even when you get to the market day itself, you don't have to follow it. If you get there and you start to set it up, you can totally change it, whatever feels right in the moment. Sometimes you don't know what your neighboring booths are going to do. Sometimes you don't have a corner and you're in between two other vendors, and that might be a little bit of a different setup than what you had originally planned. Or maybe you actually have some extra spacing between you and your vendors that are next to you that will allow for you to do maybe a different setup that you originally wanted, but you didn't think you could do because you thought everyone was going to be, butted up next to each other. So if you get to the day of the market and the layout that you have chosen just doesn't work or doesn't flow well, doesn't suit the space that you have, you are given permission right here, right now, to change your setup the day of. One pro tip for when you're thinking about displays is using the vertical height of your booth. So a lot of times newer vendors will kind of keep things at one level on the table, but rise it up. Make levels using different height things. Plus, if you go up higher, you can put out more product. So if you just leave things flat on the table, you're very limited to what you can bring and put out. So use your vertical space and be creative with it. Now we need to start working on making our products. This is going to be very, very dependent on you and your type of products that you're selling, how much time you have in order to dedicate to making these products. So I can't give you a specific time frame of how long you need or anything like that. But now that you've had those first two things done, now is the time to start working on making your products. Okay, now the last part to the pre-market prepping stuff is figuring out and thinking about the logistics on the back end of things. Things that the customer doesn't necessarily see. So that would include things like transportation. How are you getting to the market space? How are you transporting all of those items? Is it a market that's really close by that you can throw everything into a wagon and walk down the street to? Or is it somewhere that you have to drive? The vehicle that you have, is it going to fit all of the items that you're needing to take? Your displays, your boxes, your bins of your products, everything like that. Is it going to fit? If not, what do you do? Are you going to rent a U-Haul? Are you going to use a trailer? Are you going to borrow a friend or family's truck or SUV? What kind of things do you need to plan for and prepare for on that end for transportation? It can also include things on taking payments. Are you going to be taking card payments using Square? Are you taking card payments using Shopify or another platform to accept card payments? Are you going to be using things like Venmo or PayPal or Apple Pay or Cash App, anything like that? If so, is it all set up? Is it ready to go? Do you have the hardware that you need? Things like that. A really big thing that you're going to have to think about and consider is, are you set up outside? If you are set up outside, okay, first, if you're set up inside, I feel like it's a lot easier to be a vendor inside somewhere. Now, it's not always the easiest as far as like getting customers to come in unless it's a very well-known market. But as far as the vendor perspective, it is so much easier to set up an indoor booth. That is just me and my personal opinion. Because you don't have to worry about the elements. You don't have to worry about if it's too hot, if it's too cold, if it's raining, if it's windy. You don't have to worry about those things. If you are outside, you do have to worry about those things. You have to worry about if it's hot, if it's cold, if it's raining, or if it's windy. Those are things that you have to think about beforehand, and you have to be somewhat prepared. Because, man, Mother Nature is something else sometimes. Most of the time, at least for the markets that I have gone to, there has been a requirement for weights for your tent legs if you are outside. Because it can be a danger if there is a big gust of wind and it picks up your tent and throws it across the market. So yeah, you don't want to be that vendor who lost their tent. So getting weights for your tent is very, very important. I would suggest the sandbag type ones, where basically they're just empty bags and then you pour in sand or rocks or anything like that. I've seen where they almost look like weight plates that have like a slit that you put onto the leg. I've seen those. I personally don't like them because I've seen where the leg kind of wiggles out because the tent will still wiggle and shake with the wind. I've seen where it wiggles out, or maybe they just use one and it's just not enough. With the sand, you can really pack that sand in there and get it nice and sturdy, nice and heavy, and then you just tie that onto the leg. So I personally use that. That's what I would recommend. I've seen other people use big buckets like the Home Depot or the Lowe's buckets, and they will fill that with cement or rocks and then tie a string to the handle of that bucket, tie a string to the top of their tent. I have seen that as well. So there's a variety of ways to weigh down your tent and make sure it's not going anywhere. But thinking about that, that's a really, really important one because it can be dangerous if that tent goes flying. Have walls that you can purchase for the canopies. Basically, you just put them up on your sides and it blocks the sun and the wind and the rain from coming into your booth. I have not personally used these, but I have seen tons and tons of vendors that use them. So that is an option. Another option I have seen is using some kind of clear tarp to cover the products on your table. There's a wide variety of ways that you can protect your products from the rain. So just kind of having some of those as backup. I would even take some of those things as backup, even if it's not forecasted to be rainy, because you never know. Something could just come out of nowhere and you just want to be prepared. All right, so that is now all of the pre-market stuff. There's a lot more to it, but a lot of that you learn as you go. Now it is market day. So what do? We're super excited. Market day is here. We've been working and prepping and getting all these things ready to go. We're so excited to display all of our items to all of the shoppers that are going to be coming by. First tip I would give you for market day is to arrive as early as you can, especially if you are just starting at markets and you don't really know how long it's going to take you to set up your booth. You don't know exactly how you want things laid out. Get there as early as you can. This is going to depend on the market itself how early you can get there. So some markets will allow you to get there a couple hours early. Other markets will allow you to arrive maybe only an hour early. So know what time you can arrive, like the earliest you can get to your space, and try to get as close to that as possible. One really, really important thing to keep in mind that a lot of markets have, at least the ones that I've seen, is you have to be set up by a certain time before the market. Usually it's about 15 to 20 minutes before the actual market start time. Your booth should be set up and ready to go. You can still do finishing touches, you can still be tweaking small things here and there, but the bulk of your booth should be set up about 15 to 20 minutes before the actual market starts. Vehicles need to be moved, bins need to be put away, all of those kinds of things. So when you are deciding how early you want to get to a market to set up, keep that in mind as well. If you only have an hour before the actual start time of the market that you can be there, and you have to be ready, 15 minutes before the market starts, that only leaves you about 45 minutes for actual setup. I always suggest, like I said, getting there as early as you can and giving yourself that time to make those final adjustments, make those final tweaks, and not feel rushed at the end. So this next piece is something that took me a little bit to learn and be kind of actually ready for, and that was to be prepared to take payments at any time. I used to wait to the very, very, very end. Once I had everything all set up, I would then get my system. I used to use Square at the time. I used to get all that set up at the very, very end. I get my cash box all ready to go, all of that stuff. That was at the very end. But what I found is I was losing out on a few sales here and there from other vendors or families and friends of other vendors who were there helping, who might have been walking by and saw something and wanted to purchase something before the actual market started. So I was losing out on some of those sales. So being prepared to take payments at any time is going to be really, really helpful. You don't need your whole checkout stand set up. You don't need anything like that, but just kind of know at least, where your cash box is, know where your card reader is, know how to turn it on quickly, connect any internet access you need, anything like that. Just kind of know how to do that as quickly as possible. And if somebody comes up and says, hey, I really like this, can I buy this now before the market starts? You will be ready to go. All right, now the last tip that I have for this entire video is have fun. You have done a lot of work and a lot of preparation to get to this point, so enjoy it now. You are here, you are meeting the customers, you are talking to them about your products, you are sharing your artwork, your love, your passions out into the world. Enjoy it, have fun. I know it's going to be a really, really long day. I know you're probably going to be tired. I know you're probably going to be overwhelmed, and you're probably going to be hungry. You probably didn't have time to stop and eat an actual lunch at any point. So yeah, but still try to enjoy it as much as you can. And at the end of it, do a little debrief with either yourself or somebody that helps you with the market, and look back and see what things you can improve on, what things you can learn from. What did you do that you liked? What were your thoughts about markets? So enjoy yourself, have fun, meet other vendors, and be excited because you just did your first market. All right, so that's going to be it for all of my tips on craft shows and vendor markets. I hope that you guys really, really enjoyed this series. I hope that this video was helpful for you in any way. If it was, give this video a big thumbs up. It helps me out and I greatly, greatly appreciate it. Also, if you did watch all the videos in this series, let me know down in the comments and let me know which one was your favorite, which one you found the most beneficial. So I, again, really appreciate you guys for coming on this journey with me and following along and supporting me. So I cannot wait to continue on and see you guys next week. Be sure to subscribe and turn on the bell notifications. That way, when I do upload my future videos, you will be notified that I have done so. All right, guys, we will see you next week. Bye.